Hello, Algebra 1. We're going in to factoring. So we're doing day 1 in our booklet, in our practice. So go ahead and jump to page 11. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just a little definition. And factoring, it's our first blank. Factoring quadratics finds the roots or x-intercepts of a quadratic equation. So a quadratic equation we know is x squared, and roots and x-intercepts is where it crosses. My goodness, I'm struggling. The x-axis. Okay, so we should know that from previous examples. And we're going to talk about this property later. So solutions we know are called zeros. They are called intercepts. X-intercepts. And they are called roots. So you'll hear these three terms be used interchangeably. So how we do that is we find factors of c that add to get us b. So here's our equation. We've got x squared plus bx plus c. So we need to find factors of c, which is the number without any variables, that add up to b, which is the number with just x. We would rewrite that in factored form, which we'll learn about here shortly. So let's just go ahead and give the first example a shot. So if we look at it, we know that b is 3 and c is 2. So we need to find factors of 2 that add to get b. Well, what two numbers multiply to get you 2? Well, there's only one. We got 1 and we've got 2. And crazy, if you add those together, you get 3. So our answer here is x plus 1, x plus 2. So here's my answer, all factored out. Say you wanted to check your answer. You weren't sure if you were quite right. Well, let's practice the distributive property, just like how we did a couple lessons ago. So remember, we'd have x and then plus 1. We'd have x and then plus 2. We'd multiply these two to get x squared. We'd get 1 times x, so 1x here. Then 2 times x, which is 2x. And then, let's see, 1 times 2, which is 2. So we would combine these two here, and we would get x squared plus 3x plus 2. So this is the work that I showed to check my answer, but my answer are these two factors right up there. Okay, so let's do that process again for number 2. So our goal is to find numbers that multiply to 20, but add to get us -1. So factors of 20, we got 1 and 20. We've got 2 and 10. We've got 4 and 5. Okay, so let's stop there and look and see what we can do. Well, in any situation, is 1 and 20 going to get me -1? No. So those are out. What about 2 and 10? Are they ever going to get me -1? No. Those are out. So lastly, we've got 4 and 5, and we can see that positive 4 minus 5 gives me a -1. So my answer in this case is going to be x plus 4 and x minus 5. So what I want you guys to do right now is pause this video and plug it in our little box to check our answer. Okay, so go ahead and pause me. Alright, so you should have seen that after you plugged and multiplied all of those boxes that you would get the exact same quadratic after multiplying. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do a couple more examples. And this time we're not necessarily going to check the answer, but if you want to, go for it. Okay, so here's our next one. So I kind of made these boxes for you guys to help guide you to what you need to do. So we need to find factors of c. That's our first thing. So remember, this is b, this is c. So we need to find factors of 18 that add up to 9. Well, let's look at factors of 18. We've got 1 and 18. we've got 2 and 9, and we've got 3 and 6. So let's look here. If we have 1 and 18, is that ever going to get us 9? No. What about 9 and 2? Is that ever going to get us 9? Well, no, because 9's involved with it. Well, 3 and 6, yes. If you add them together, it will equal 9. So positive 3, positive 6. My answer here is going to be x plus 3, x plus 6. So if you guys are struggling with how to plug in those factors, you saw that you got a plus 3, you write it in with our x. You saw you got a plus 6, you write it in another factor with x. Okay, well, let's go ahead and do number 4. So our goal for number 4 is to get factors of 4 that add up to 3. So we've got 1 and 4, we've got 2 and 2. Well, if you look at 1 and 4, could that get us 3? If they're both positive? Nope, that would get us a 5. So that's not the case. Well, what if we had 1 and 4, but the 4 was negative, but the 1 was positive? Well, we'd see that would get us a negative 3, so that's not quite. But what if we had a negative 1 and a positive 4? That would get us that positive 3 that we're looking for. So here's our two factors. We know 2 and 2 is not going to work. So our factors here are x minus 1, x plus 4. Alright, so there's examples 3 and 4. Alright, let's go ahead and go on to number 7. Or not number 7, number 5. Number 5. So we need to find factors of C. C is 9 and B is 6. So numbers that multiply to 9. We got 1 and 9. And we've got 3 and 3. Well, our goal is to get them to equal 6. So 1 and 9, is that ever going to give you 6? No, it's not. What about 3 and 3? Yes, because they're both positive. So we've got x plus 3, x plus 3 as our answer. All right, number 6. So for number 6, we want our numbers to multiply to get 1, because that's C. So numbers that multiply to get us 1. This is a tough one. Just 1 and 1. Well, my goal is to get them to add up to a negative 2. So if I have 1 and 1, how could I get negative 2? Would they both be positive? Or would they both be negative? And if we want a negative 2, they're both going to be negative, because negative 1 minus 1 gives me a negative 2. So my factors here are x minus 1, x minus 1. There's my beautiful answer. All right, now let's go to number 9. And this one kind of has a little question for it. What happens if it doesn't factor? What you have to do is show me all the factors to prove that it doesn't factor at all. So if we look at number 7, we know that we're finding factors of 8. Well, numbers that multiply to 8, we got 1 and 8. We've got 2 and 4. Okay, that's pretty much it. We've got them where they're both positive, and we know that 1 plus 8 gives me 9. We know that 4 plus 2 gives me 6. Well, what happens if they're both negative? We've got negative 1 minus 8. That gives me a negative 9. What about negative 2 minus 4? Well, that gives me a negative 6. Well, what if I had a negative 1 and a positive 8? Well, that would give me a 7. That's a positive 7. And then let's say I had a negative 2 and a positive 4. Well, that would give me a positive 2. Okay, well, what if they had a positive 1 but a negative 8? Oh, well, that gives me a negative 7. Or what if I had a 2 and a minus 4. Well, that would give me a negative 2. Okay, so say in a weird situation that this number here wasn't negative 7. Let's say it was negative 10. And our goal was for it to get to negative 10. Well, I would have to show all of these just to make sure that there isn't a negative 10, so I could put does not factor. Okay, so you'll just be putting that on some of these lessons, but we'll eventually learn what to do if it doesn't factor. So make sure you check everything before you put does not factor. If you just put does not factor, but don't show me any work, I'm going to be a little angry, get a little grumpy. All right, so we've got one problem left, number 8, and what I want you to do is pause me and try number 8, and when you're done, check it. Okay, cool, pause me. All right, guys, so you should have found factors of 30, and your goal is to get negative 1. So the factors of 30 that work are 5 and 6, but the 6 has to be negative because you're looking for that negative 1. All right, hopefully you got the right answer. Go ahead and give this worksheet a shot. If you get stuck or need help, please let us know. Goodbye.